call the meeting to order. I would like to welcome everyone to the 1157th regular meeting and public hearing of the Livonia City Planning Commission. I wish to inform all interested persons in the audience that for petitions on tonight's agenda, which involve a question of zoning, the Planning Commission will make a recommendation to the City Council, and the City Council, after holding their own public hearing, let's see, there we go. After holding their own public hearing, makes the final determination as to whether a petition is approved or denied. The Planning Commission holds the only public hearing on requests for preliminary plats and or vacating petitions. The Commission's recommendation is forwarded to the City Council for the final determination as to whether the petition is accepted or rejected. If a petition requesting a waiver of use or a site plan is denied tonight, the petitioner will have 10 days in which to appeal the decision in writing to the City Council. Resolutions adopted by the City Planning Commission will become effective 7 days after the date of adoption. Planning Commission and professional staff have reviewed each of these petitions upon their filing. Staff has furnished the Commission with both approving and denying resolutions, which the Commission may or may not use depending on the outcome of the proceedings tonight. If our secretary is ready, we'll have you call the roll.
Mrs. Smiley.
Present.
Mrs. McHugh.
Here.
David Bonjero. Mr. Long.
Here.
Mr. Ventura.
Here.
Caremagnos here. Chairman Wilshaw.
Is here. And also with us tonight, we have Mark Toromina. We have Deborah Walter, Scott Miller, Stephanie Reese, and of course our Livonia television folks here with us tonight. The rest are from our planning department. And just to let anyone in our audience know that the format of this meeting is that we will start by reading out each of these items on our agenda. We will then go to Mr. Toromina to give background information on the item. There will be an opportunity for the petitioner to then raise their hand and signify that they would like to participate in the meeting. We'll give them an opportunity to speak on their petition, and then anyone else in the audience with us tonight that would like to speak will also be given an opportunity. So please use your raise hand feature when the appropriate time comes, and we will make sure to get you recognized so that you can speak. With that, let me see here. We will, I believe, jump into item number 1 on our agenda, which is public hearing items. Mr. Secretary?
Petition 2020-06-02-05 submitted by Vision Quest Consulting, Inc. And they're requesting waiver use approval pursuant to section 16.11F of the City of Livonia zoning ordinance number 543 as amended to operate a physical therapy facility at 11878 Hubbard Avenue, located on the east side of Hubbard between Plymouth Road and Capitol in the southeast quarter of section 27.
All right, thank you, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Toromina?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, there's a request to operate a physical therapy facility under section 16.11F of the zoning ordinance. This site is on the east side of Hubbard. It's just north of Plymouth Road. And as you can see, the zoning is M1, which is light manufacturing, and all of the surrounding properties are zoned similarly. The property itself is about 1.9 acres in size. It has 365 feet of frontage along Hubbard. The property contains a 2-story building that measures roughly 32,500 square feet. This building was originally constructed for AM General, which was a military and commercial automotive manufacturer. It was used as offices and a research and design center in connection with their larger production facility, which is located on the adjacent parcel to the east. And actually, you can see on this aerial photograph that those structures were actually connected. There was a walkway between this building and the large manufacturing structure to the east. Phillips Services eventually acquired the building and occupied it as its corporate headquarters. The passage along that walkway was blocked for security purposes. And then following the departure of Phillips Services, the property was acquired by the owners of the production facility, Allied Commerce Center, and that walkway was removed. So today, that structure that is shown on the aerial photograph as the connection between the two buildings, that no longer exists. The first floor of the facility, and this is a floor plan, it would include a large physical therapy area, areas for that matter, training rooms, as well as offices, break room, arrest rooms, and other support services. The second floor would effectively be mothballed, at least temporarily. There are no building changes, no exterior modifications proposed. What they are planning to do is expand the parking lot. Again, if we go back to the aerial photograph, you'll see how the parking is arranged currently on the site. Actually, it's been modified since this, but this is what it would look like upon completion of the improvement. So the parking lot would be increased in size in order to accommodate roughly 106 vehicles. There would be a single driveway that would provide access from Hubbard Avenue. And you can also see on this plan the large number of barrier-free spaces, I think kind of reflecting the fact that the use would be a physical therapy facility. So one of the issues we discussed at the study session was landscaping, and the petitioner has submitted a new landscape plan, and I apologize, I don't have it as part of this slideshow, but I'm going to bring up what that plan looks like. Hopefully you can see this. This is the landscape plan. So a fully detailed plan has been included in your packet. It shows a variety of landscape materials, including new trees, shrubs, ground cover, as well as perennial flowers. There's a second sheet to the plan that shows that several trees that are on the site currently and that would be impacted by the expanded parking lot will actually be transplanted. There's 21 in total that will be removed and relocated on the site. So I believe this addresses a number of the, some of the questions that came up at the study session. So Mr. Chairman, with that, I'll be happy to read out the correspondence.
Yes, please, Mr. Tormina.
So we have a few departmental letters. The first is from our engineering division dated June 29th that reads, the existing parcel is currently serviced by public water main, sanitary sewer, and storm sewer. The information submitted does not show proposed alterations for the utility services, so it does not appear that there will be any impacts to the existing systems. It should be noted that the submitted plans indicate that the existing parking lot is to be reconfigured to provide the required parking. Based on the comparison of existing and proposed site layouts, it appears that the parking lot will need to be removed and replaced, which will require the owner to provide stormwater detention per Wayne County Stormwater Ordinance. Should the project move forward, the owner will need to submit engineering drawings to this department showing the proposed stormwater detention. And that letter is signed by David Lear, Assistant City Engineer. Next is a letter of no objection coming from our Police Traffic Bureau and signed by Scott Shapansky, Sergeant. That letter is dated July 1st. We have a letter of no objection coming from Department of Public Safety, Livonia Fire and Rescue, dated June 26th and signed by Greg Thomas, Fire Marshal for the city. Next, a letter of no objection coming from our Department of Finance indicating that there are no outstanding amounts receivable, general or water and sewer, therefore no objections. And that's a letter signed by Connie Kumpula, Chief Accountant. And lastly, there's a letter of no objection from the Office of the Treasurer, as she indicates that there are no taxes due at this time. And that letter is signed by Linda Scheel, Treasurer of the City of Livonia, dated June 26th. And that is the extent of the correspondence. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Tormina. Do we have any questions from the Planning Commission to our planning staff? No questions for Mr. Tormina. So with that, Mr. Kaufman is here. I believe he is the petitioner. We're going to bring him into our meeting and ask that he unmute his line when he's ready. Good evening, Mr. Kaufman.
Good evening.
We always ask that our attendees start with their name and address for our record.
Brandon Kaufman, 4729 Wendra Drive, West Bloomfield, Michigan, 48323.
Great, thank you, sir. And is there anyone else that you have with you tonight that we need to also unmute
No.
Okay. I do see that the property owner, Mr. Abbey, is in the audience. We'll give him an opportunity to speak during the audience participation if he wishes to. Welcome to our meeting, and tell us more about your petition.
Yeah, so we're asking that we are given the zoning to operate a physical therapy facility. The tenant or facility, they're actually located in Lansing right now, or Livonia right now, and they want to stay in Livonia. And so we've been working diligently to find a building that would accommodate them, and this one seemed to fit the bill. So, you know, we're just asking that we're able to use the facility as physical therapy. There's a building, I think, to the south that you guys granted a similar variance to or use waiver several years back. And we're excited to move forward with the project.
Great, thank you, Mr. Coffin. Is there anyone on the commission with any questions for our petitioner tonight?
Chairman.
Mr. Ventura.
Mr. Kaufman, other than the addition of rather extensive landscaping on the outside of the building, are there any other changes that you intend to make to the exterior of the building?
No, not at this time.
Okay, and I note that I don't see anything in the package on signage. Are you planning on reusing the monument sign in front of the building?
Yeah, we'd like to obviously rename it, use that, and then I believe it's under a different permit, you know, probably try and get some signage that faces Hubbard Street as well.
Okay,
There's a sign on the building right now in the
it's covered up.
south, or well, it'd be the northwest corner of the building that faces Hubbard. There's a small sign there, and there's a small monument sign.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ventura. Any other questions for our petitioner?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Caremagno.
Mr. Kaufman, where again are you moving out of to move in here, and how does the size compare to the building you're currently in?
So it's right now it's between 6 and 7 mile, and that facility is about 9 to 10,000 square feet. And so this first floor will be around 15,000 square feet, plus, you know, the ability at some point to maybe use the upstairs. So it's about, you know, what would that be, 50% or 30% larger?
Okay, and this building at this point, does it have an elevator inside if you were to use the upstairs for any type of physical therapy? Is there an elevator?
Yeah, there is an elevator. Tyson Krupp was in there just this last week, recertified it. And the building is fully sprinkled as well with 2 means of egress at each end, each east and west end of the facility.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Caremagno. Any other questions for our petitioner? All right, I don't see anyone else with any questions.
Chair?
Is there anyone in the audience who is wishing to speak for or against this petition? If so, please use the raise hand button, and that way we can see that you're interested in speaking, and we'll give you a chance to speak. Again, anyone in the audience? We have one person, Mr. Abbey. We will recognize you. You can unmute yourself. There we go.
All I needed to do was figure out where the mute button was.
Yes, it's a little challenging.
Accomplished.
Good evening.
Good evening. So my name is Mitchell Abbey, resident in Toronto, Ontario. Do you need a specific address, Mr. Wilshaw?
If you have a business address, or do you just want to, any address is good, just to put in our record.
1 Yorkdale Road, Suite 408, Toronto, Ontario. M5C1A5 or something to that effect.
Very good. Postal codes. Thank you.
I memorized the postal code after 9 years.
Well, good evening. Thank you for coming to our meeting tonight.
Thank you. So I'm vocalizing only in support of the application. This building has been empty since the day that Mr. Ventura and I closed on a transaction on this property some time ago. The use is a solid use. And we're in support of the application. We've been working with Mr. Kaufman to bring this transaction about, and we're looking forward to it. Full support.
Excellent. Thank you for attending. It's first, I think, that we've ever had someone this far away actually be able to attend our meeting. So that's very exciting.
Glad I could bring that level of excitement to you, Ian. That's sad.
Mr. Tormina, I believe, has a question.
Yeah, a question for Mr. Kaufman. Brandon, as I inspected the property, I noted along the base of the ephes, the exterior of the building, there was some damage, either from mowers or whatever. And I'm just curious whether it's your plan to maybe repair the damaged ephes and possibly repaint the building. I know you indicated that there was not, you didn't plan any exterior changes, but maybe some maintenance along the lines that I just mentioned.
Mr. Kaufman, you can unmute yourself.
Yep, can you hear me now?
We hear you.
Okay, it's like a Sprint commercial. Yeah, so we did have the ephes tested both for moisture by a third-party engineer. It all came back very positive other than the damage from mowers at the base. And we have budgeted just some money to do the cosmetic repairs along the base. None of it's structural in nature. So the intent would not be to repaint the entire building because that's not necessary. There's some maintenance around the windows in terms of caulking, and then just repairing, like you indicated, around the base for mowers or whatnot.
Thank you.
Yep.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Kaufman and Mr. Tormina. Any other questions for our petitioner this evening?
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Ventura?
just one. Mr. Kaufman, you told us during the study session that you're purchasing this building, and that remains to be true. Is that right?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, Mr. Ventura. Any other questions? And again, I'll ask, is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak on this item? I don't see anyone else raising their hand. I don't see any other questions, so I think I can close the public hearing at this time, and a motion would be in order.
Mr. Chair.
Mrs. McHugh.
Can't talk over the mute button.
Well, yeah, I know it's frustrating. I'd like to offer an approving resolution that the request to operate a physical therapy facility at 11878 Hubbard Avenue is hereby approved, subject to the City Council approval and the following conditions. That the site plan marked sheet 1 dated April 15th, 2020 as revised, prepared by NF Engineers, is hereby approved and shall be adhered to. That this site shall meet either the City of Livonia or the Wayne County Stormwater Management Ordinance, whichever applies. That the tree removal plan sheet L1 and landscaping plan sheet L2 dated July 9th, 2020, prepared by NF Engineers, are hereby approved and shall be adhered to. That all disturbed lawn areas, including road right-of-ways, shall be sodded in lieu of hydroseeding. That the 3 walls of the trash dumpster shall be constructed out of building materials that shall complement that of the building. The enclosure gate shall be of solid panel steel construction or durable, long-lasting solid panel fiberglass. The trash dumpster area shall always be maintained when not in use, closed. That only conforming signage is approved with this petition and any additional signage shall be separately submitted for review and approval by the Zoning Board of Appeals. And pursuant to section 19.10 of ordinance number 543, the zoning ordinance of the city of Livonia, this approval is valid for a period of 1 year only from the date of approval by city council. And unless a building permit is obtained, this approval shall be null and void at the expiration of said period.
Thank you, Mrs. McHugh. Is there support?
Board.
All right, I hear Mr. Bonjero. And we have a motion to approve by Mrs. McHugh and a support by Mr. Bonjero. Is there any discussion on this motion to approve? If there's no discussion, Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mrs. McHugh,
Aye.
Mr. Bonjero,
Aye.
Mrs. Smiley,
Aye.
Mr. Long,
Aye.
Mr. Ventura.
Aye.
Chair Magno votes aye. Chairman Wilshaw.
Votes aye, and the motion passes, and we'll go on to City Council with an approving recommendation. Thank you for coming this evening, Mr. Kaufman. We wish you the best of luck with your project.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I did type a chat message relative to the Zoom meetings. If you guys can maintain these, I think it's a phenomenal thing for probably you all and residents and obviously developers and whatnot. So, yeah, even if they lift all these stay orders and everything else, you said you've got somebody calling in from Canada. So it really helps, I think, facilitate, communication and development. So, but thank
I
you.
agree, Mr. Kaufman. It'll be interesting to see what time tells for us, but we do have the Open Meetings Act that we have to comply with, and that has some requirements in terms of in-person meetings and so on. So we'll see what the governor does, and I do think this has been a great technology and improvement to give opportunities for residents to participate. So
Yeah.
hopefully we can keep doing it.
Well, thank you again. I appreciate the approval, and we look forward to a successful development in the city.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming this evening.
Yep.
And again, best of luck to you.
Thanks. Have a great night.
You too. With that, we now move on to the miscellaneous items section of our agenda. Mr. Secretary, item number 2.
Petition 2020-06-08-04, submitted by Bad Brad's Barbecue, requesting approval of all plans required by 18.7 and 18.58 of the City of Livonia zoning ordinance number 543 as amended, in connection with a proposal to expand the food service operation of the restaurant, formerly G. Subaru's Leather Bottle, to include an outdoor dining patio and exterior facade renovations at 20,300 Farmington Road, located on the east side of Farmington Road, between Pembroke and 8 Mile Road, in the northwest quarter of Section 3.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Tormina?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request to remodel and update the former G. Subu's Leather Bottle Restaurant under a new name and ownership. When it reopens, it will be called Bad Brad's Barbecue, and this will be the restaurant's 5th location. The site, as was indicated, is on Farmington Road, the east side. It's about 600 feet south of 8 Mile Road. The property is 2.2 acres in area. It has roughly 210 feet of frontage on Farmington and a depth of 452 feet. And as you can see from the zoning map, a majority of the site is zone C2 general business. This is where the restaurant and majority of the parking lot is located. The P designation, that stands for parking, so that's a parking district. And then the yellow portion of the site at the far easterly end is actually zoned R3, one family residential. This is the aerial photograph showing the location of the building on the property, as well as the parking. You can see majority of the parking is located at the rear on the east side of the building. So the plans include extensive renovations, both inside and out. The exterior changes include major improvements to the facade, adding a new outdoor dining space and upgrading the landscaping. Adapting the interior of the building to the new floor layout also involves substantial work, much of which is currently underway. The floor plan shows the layout of the dining and bar areas, the kitchen, the waitstaff workstation, pizza, smoker area, coolers, as well as dry storage rooms and restrooms. And this is the general floor layout for the restaurant. There's a lot here. I think we went over it in pretty significant detail at our study meeting. Bad Brad's will not be operating a separate banquet facility. This is something that G. Subu's had located along the north side of the property or the building itself. And instead, this banquet room area is going to be converted to general dining. So the floor plan shows a combination of tables and chairs and booths having a total inside seating capacity of 131. This is a substantial reduction from when it was G. Subu's, which operated with a seating capacity of roughly 210. So looking at the exterior modifications, I'm going to go right to the renderings because this really tells the story mostly. The existing building contains mostly brick with an asphalt shingled mansard roof. But along the front of the building facing Farmington Road, which this is the image of that side of the building, the existing mansard has been removed and it's going to be replaced with new reclaimed brick. And I can actually show you a sample of that brick in just a second. Much of the material being used in the construction is actually our reclaimed products, and Mr. Pollard can explain that in greater detail. The design, as you can see here, includes a new rectangular shaped entrance and vestibule. The exterior finish of this area, as well as the frames around the windows, is a composite. These are composite panels, and it appears like a cedar wood primarily. The entrance area will be covered, as you can see, by a timber framed canopy. This is also reclaimed wood being used in the construction. The roof of that canopy would be corrugated metal. So the canopy extends roughly 22 feet 4 inches from the entrance, and it does encroach into the required front yard setback, and that will require a variance. On the other sides of the building, go to some of the renderings there. And maybe I don't have a good rendering, so I'm going to actually show you the black and white drawing as it pertains to the other sides. What happens there is the asphalt shingles along the mansard get removed and replaced with the same corrugated metal that is going to be used on the roof of the canopy. You can also see from this elevation plan that the east side of the building includes a painted mural on the brick, which is located below the mansard. And I know this is identified as the west elevation, but it's actually the east elevation. So this is the back of the building, opposite Farmington Road, facing that main parking lot. And this, as was indicated at the study meeting, is not the final design. In fact, I think the petitioner this evening can describe in greater detail what that design is going to look like. Going back to the renderings, another significant feature, and I'll go back to the site plan and start there. The landscape plan, I think, shows this quite well. But there's an outdoor patio that's included in the design. It's located here in the northwest corner of the building. That patio is roughly 1,600 feet. It would be built using unilock pavers. And what's unique here is along the north side of the patio, or bordering that north edge of the patio, the plans show a 40-foot long metal shipping container that would either connect to or abut against the building. So there would be a set of doors that would provide access between the restaurant into the shipping container. And then on the south side of the container, that would be open to allow for access between the container itself and the patio. The patio right now, as well as the container, include tables and chairs with the capacity to accommodate roughly 44 customers. And then the other side, the other sides of the patio, so this side, which is the west side as well as the south side, there would be fencing and brick piers that would demarcate the limits of the patio on this side. So you've got the shipping container on the north side, and then fencing. So going back to the rendering, I think this really illustrates it well. You can see here are those brick piers. There's fencing between each of the piers, which are spaced out maybe 5 feet apart. And then if you look at this rendering, the backside, this is that shipping container that I described. This is actually looking beneath the shipping container. So this is that large opening. So as the shipping container connects to the building here, you can see that that south side would be cut open, allowing for access. So portion of the patio would be covered by means of the roof of the shipping container, and then you can see access out into that patio. And I think there's another rendering. This shows it really from the north side of what that would look like. There are openings with windows. This is that former banquet space that was part of the restaurant. There would be doors located right here, providing access between this dining room and the shipping container. And this rendering also illustrates the type of roofing that would be used in the construction. So looking at the parking, parking is more than adequate for the restaurant. The restaurant, the requirement is 1 space for every 2 indoor seats plus 1 space for every 3 outdoor seats, as well as 1 space for each employee. When you add all that up, there are, assuming there are roughly 15 employees during a normal shift, you're looking at just under 100 spaces, 96. The parking lot provides a total of 157 parking spaces. So there's a surplus roughly of 60 spaces. Going back to the landscape plan, landscaping improvements include areas around the building, along portions of the north side, as well as here where the dumpster would be located in the southeast portion of the site, where there are 7 spruce trees shown to really supplement what is an existing treed area that runs along the back of the property on that residential zone portion. The dumpster would be enclosed by means of masonry construction that would be 6 feet in height at least. The existing light poles in the parking lot would remain. And then in terms of signage, we haven't really reviewed signage, but they would be allowed, obviously, 1 wall sign facing Farmington Road, as well as a monument sign, which we haven't seen the plans for. So, Mr. Chairman, at this point, I can read the correspondence on this item.
Yes, please.
We have a number of items. Start with the engineering division, letter dated June 19th, and it reads, in accordance with your request, the engineering division has reviewed the above referenced petition. We have no objections to the proposed project at this time. The parcel is assigned the address of 20300 Farmington Road. The proposed development is currently serviced by public water main, sanitary, and storm sewers. The submitted drawing does not indicate any utility connection, so we do not have any knowledge of impacts to the existing systems at this time. Should revisions to the utility service leads be required, plans should be submitted to this department to determine if engineering permits will be required. Also, should any work within the Farmington Road right-of-way be needed, permits may be needed from the Wayne County Department of Public Services. And that letter is signed by David Lear, Assistant City Engineer. We have a couple letters of no objection. The first coming from the Division of Police, signed by Scott Shapansky, Sergeant of the Traffic Bureau. That letter is dated June 30th. A similar letter of no objection coming from the Fire Marshal, dated June 26th and signed by Greg Thomas. Next is a letter of no objection from the Treasurer's Office. They indicate that there are no taxes due at this time. That letter is signed by Linda Shield, Treasurer of the City, and dated June 19th. And then lastly, we have a letter from the Department of Finance. This letter is dated July 7th, and it reads, I have reviewed the address connected with the above noted petition. The following amounts are due to the City of Livonia. Unpaid water and sewer charges, July 7th, 2020, in the amount of $678.41. And that letter is signed by Connie Kumpula, Chief Accountant. And Mr. Chair, that is the extent of the correspondence.
All right, thank you, Mr. Tormia. Do we have any questions for our planning staff? Anyone on the commission?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Bonjero.
I just have a question for Mark. Mark, in regard to the parking lot, I know Mr. Pollard's going to redo the parking lot, and on that east property line, there's going to need to be some clearing out because there's some growth that grew way onto the parking lot. do you see any potential at all for stormwater retention needed on this site?
I do not. I'm not aware at this time the need for any necessarily any engineering permits that maybe haven't already been issued. I know that there was some sanitary lead work, but I think that was probably handled by our inspection department. So I'm not aware of the need for any stormwater detention, as they're actually probably, if you do the calculations, are actually reducing the amount of impervious area on the site maybe by a small degree. There's certainly not, there's no substantive increase that would trigger the need for stormwater that I can see.
Okay.
Stormwater
I
management.
was just concerned if they're redoing the whole parking lot. You know, that was the only thing I had, but that's good news. And then that growth, all the natural growth in the back property line, that's supposed to stay, right?
Yeah, we'll let the petitioner indicate what his intentions are for that area. You may have noted that, you know, there's some overhanging vegetation on that last row of parking, which could easily be trimmed back. We certainly wouldn't encourage any large-scale removal of vegetation, as you know, it serves a nice buffer between the commercial and the residential properties. As far as the parking lot goes, it's going to need to be repaired and resealed and restriped. I don't know if there's any intention to remill it or anything of that nature, but we'll let the petitioner describe what his intentions are for the parking lot.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bonjero. Any other questions for Mr. Tormina? Ms. Smiley?
Yes, thank you. Mark, is our parking good with our new seating? What's the new seating capacity in there?
Yeah, no, it's a reduction, Commissioner Smiley. So right now, well, the former restaurant operated with over 200 seats. This is going to be closer to 130 for the interior seating, and you do have some outdoor seats, but it's a net reduction in the amount of seating, and so there's a surplus of parking spaces available on the site.
Okay, good. And then did we come up with something on the mural outside?
You know, I'm going to let the petitioner, he and I had a lengthy discussion. He was kind enough to give me a grand tour of the building last week, and we talked about a lot of items, including the mural. He has, I think he's pinned down a concept, and hopefully he can share that. And Mr. Pollard, if you're listening now and if there's any means to do that, or maybe send me an email, I can make sure that I show that as part of tonight's discussion, if that's possible. So
Okay.
I'll let him once again describe that.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Smiley. Any other questions for our planning staff? If not, we do have Mr. Pollard and Mr. Kritzman here this evening, and they have been joined to our meeting. So good evening, and we'll start, I guess, with Mr. Pollard.
Good evening.
Mike, you are, I believe, unmuted. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We hear you now. Very good. If you'd like to just start with your name and address, business address for the record, we would ask that you do that, and then tell us a bit about your petition.
My name is Michael Pollard. My address is 21903 Aldridge Street. That is Clinton Township, Michigan, 48036. And we are here tonight to discuss Bad Brad's new location in Livonia, the front facade, and the addition of the patio. We can talk about that mural, and if I'm able to share my screen, I can kind of walk you through what my thoughts were. So if you guys have any questions, please let me know.
Yeah, I don't think screen sharing is allowed for the audience members, if I'm not mistaken, but Mr. Tormina can correct me if I'm wrong, but
Yeah, I'm not able to see an option that I could do that. So again,
Mark, did I send, I can send that email to somebody right now if someone's able to share.
why don't you do that? And then I'll be the one to share that. So if you can send it to my attention. Do you have my email?
1 second.
Am I active on the microphone?
we hear you, Brandon.
I just pulled up the email that Mr. Pollard shared with me regarding the anticipated direction of the mural. I can forward that to Mark right
Please do.
Yeah, that'd be great. And that way Mark can show it for our viewing audience and for us.
now. All right, I forwarded that on to Mark.
And Brandon, well, you're on the mic. You may as well introduce yourself.
My name is Brandon Kritzman. I'm an architect, vice president at Detroit Architectural Group. We've been working with Mr. Pollard and Bad Brad's on the exterior design of their project on Farmington Road. And we're here certainly to answer any questions related to the site plan and the exterior renovation.
Great. Thank you, Brandon. What's the address at your business?
1644 Ford Avenue in Wyandotte, Michigan, 48192. Nice
Awesome.
short drive from Livonia.
Sounds like it.
And last week I was on with video, but I wasn't able to do that this week. I hope you guys aren't looking at me.
No, we're not looking at you, but
All right.
we hear you just fine.
All right. Well, Betsy smiled a little bit when I said I was hoping I'm not on video, so I got a little concerned for a moment.
You never know what kind of surprises we'll get on here.
Exactly.
So in the meantime, as Mr. Tormina is pulling up his emails, do we want to give any additional information about your business and what's being planned for this site?
So it's we have 4 other locations. We've been around since 2009. We have our original location in New Baltimore, our second location in Shelby Township. We followed that up with a production facility and a carryout facility in Clinton Township, and that's everything at Bad Brad's we literally make from scratch. Our production facility, basically anything that travels well, we will make there and ship to the individual stores for quality and consistency purposes. And that's working out really well. We opened up our 4th location in Orion Township a few years ago, and we're excited to be on the west side finally. And we're looking forward to it. And if all things go well, hopefully a December opening.
Sounds good. Thank you. Do we have any questions for our petitioner from any of the council or commission members this evening?
Mr. Chair, if you're ready, I can show that image.
Yeah, sure. If you have that up, Mark,
Yeah.
Go ahead. Okay, there we go.
So this is just kind of an idea. It won't be exactly this, but the idea was just to have something that represents this idea. We've kind of talked last week at the study about the artist who's going to do the work. A world-renowned muralist out of Detroit, Michigan. Like I mentioned last week, he does all the stuff for the Detroit Tigers, the Lions, Hopcat. If you're looking for the right guy, this is your guy right here. He's done work for me in the past. He's just a good guy, and he's just unbelievably talented. So something like this would be nothing for him to pull off. So this was kind of the motivation here. And what we were thinking is, like we mentioned last week, is that, probably 80% of the parking is around back. And with that shipping container being on the north side of the building to kind of get people to come up on the south side of the building, the idea was, instead of writing on the wall, "Walk this way," we would do something fun and creative. And something like this kind of caught my eye. And what I'm thinking is, something similar to this, with the light, with the guy holding the light. I like that idea. We would change up the guy a little bit, so it isn't exactly this guy. But my idea was his right arm would basically just be pointing to the south, and maybe some minimal words on there to kind of head that way. But I think just the pointing alone should kind of do it. This would probably take up, this portion right here would probably take up 50% of that back wall. The rest of it would just kind of flow together, and it wouldn't be much except just fill in stuff.
So what I'm hearing is a combination of art and wayfinding for the patrons to be able to know which way to go.
Correct. And it kind of starts off your experience of what you're going to expect when you walk, around this building, in front of this building, and into this building. Because ultimately, it's an experience, and it's always kind of been that way. I don't know if anybody's been to any of our locations, but I've designed and built all of them. And this will be by far my best work. And I'm excited, very excited to be in Livonia.
Very good. Thank you for sharing that with us. Any questions from the commission for Mr. Pollard or Mr. Kritzman?
No comments at this time.
All right.
Mr. Chair, quickly, I'm going to show you the brick samples.
Okay, yes. Do you have your material samples?
Yeah, so actually I have 2 bricks. And go ahead, Mike, I'll hold them up if you want to describe what your intentions are.
This will be a first.
So
We've
always, since day one, before anybody was using reclaimed stuff, we were using reclaimed brick and reclaimed wood back in, 2008 when we were building this place. So it's always been kind of part of our theme. These particular bricks here actually came straight from Chicago. These are Chicago Commons. But you'll see the decor is this reclaimed product, reclaimed wood, reclaimed brick, reclaimed metal, some new stuff, some modern stuff, so it's a balance of modern and rustic. This one's leaning, I wouldn't say it's leaning more modern, but it's definitely has more modern than probably our location in Shelby and in New Baltimore. But as you can see from the rendering here, it's a balance of modern and rustic. That brick is, the facade itself with the mix of wood on the front and the overhang has a little bit of a modern twist to it. The brick obviously is a reclaimed product. The shipping container is something new we haven't done before. But once again, even with that, we're going for it's actually technically reclaimed, but we're going to put a little modern twist on that too.
If I may offer some additional comments.
Certainly.
I had a chance to go visit the site on Sunday, and Mike was nice enough to let me throw some old funky plywood in his construction dumpster and get it out of my garage. But I had the chance to take my 3 oldest daughters over there, and Mike gave us a tour of the building inside and out. And what's consistent throughout the project is the theme of reused materials, reclaimed materials. When we talk big picture about Livonia and what we want to accomplish and destination sites and destination projects and having things that are leaning into and grabbing onto great ideas. This is a situation I honestly believe that is one of those truly unique scenarios where we have a chance to be the home of a project that is genuinely dedicated to something that is admirable, and it's the reuse of existing materials. And we don't often see this. I mean, I can offer it up and try to get clients to do it all the time. And very rarely do we get someone committed to it like Mike Pollard and Bad Brad's Barbecue has been, to utilizing that sort of material supply chain on this project. They are utilizing brick that is reclaimed all throughout the entire inside of the space, which I understand is not necessarily in the purview of what the Planning Commission is looking at. It's very consistent with how the inside of the building and the space is decorated, whether it be from the walls to the area over the bar, the booth areas. It's all small, integrated, reused wood products, and it's very consistently applied over the course of the project, inside, outside. And I really appreciate their consistent commitment to that. And I think the bricks that have been selected are going to be a nice touch. It's certainly a very consistent quality to them over the course of time. And I don't think it's going to negatively impact anything. In fact, I think it's going to be quite the opposite. And it's going to be a great, attractive attribute to our community.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kritzman. Do we have any comments or questions from the commission?
Chairman,
Mr. Ventura?
I'd like to say to Mr. Kritzman and Mr. Pollard that I applaud the lengths to which they've gone to resuscitate this particular site and this building. I like everything about it, and I like the concept of the restaurant, and I wish them every success. However, I'm not on board with the mural as it stands at the moment. The picture that Mr. Tormina showed us is on a building that's much taller than this building is going to be. And I don't see how he gets a picture of either the man or the woman or whatever that is on the back of this building with any faith to the fidelity of the rendering that was shown us. And I don't know how he works in the wayfinding. One of my concerns about the site plan here is that there are only 8 parking spaces that have any proximate location to the front door. Everything else is behind the building. There's going to be a tremendous amount of circulation on this site in inclement weather, people trying to get to and from, in and out of the restaurant. And I think wayfaring and maybe marking of drive paths is going to be a big advantage to him. And I don't see how this drawing or this picture or painting or whatever you want to call it does anything to assist somebody in how to get themselves to the front door. And I'd like to suggest that we get a look at this thing, or that Mr. Tormina and the inspection department get a look at the final form of this rendering before permits are issued. I mean, I'm just not at all on board with the character and subject of this mural. And I'd invite either Mr. Pollard or Mr. Kritzman or both to speak to that, but I'm just telling you how I feel.
Well, I do agree that it's not in that, like I mentioned, that image that is being shown isn't to scale. That was just some inspiration. We'll have no problem scaling that down and accomplishing what we're trying to accomplish. One of the things that we've added to the front of the building, that overhang gives you the ability to drive up in the front of the building and drop people off and then drive around the back. Once dropped off, you're immediately under cover. But like we said, the building was designed with 80% of the parking in the back. I mean, is this necessary? No, it's not necessary. But I think it just kind of reflects on what we're trying to do inside and outside of the building and what we've always done, try to create an experience for the people in the community. And is it necessary? No. We could just paint it, and have nothing on the back. But I don't see how this doesn't add to the experience. And will everybody understand what he's trying to accomplish pointing to the right? Probably not. But ultimately, you're going to get to the front door. So, and I think most people will get it and appreciate it. And like Brandon had mentioned earlier, it's a destination place. And what creates destination places are little details like this.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pollard. Mr. Ventura, any other questions?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Pollard.
Thank you, Mr. Ventura. Any other questions for our petitioner from the commission?
Chair?
Mrs. Smiley?
There's absolutely no enter or exit in the back of that building at all?
There's no
I thought
enter.
there's a door.
Yeah, there is no enter. There's 3 points of egress.
Okay,
So, you got the east side, you have the south side, and then you have the west side. But there is an egress. There, you can exit from the back of the building. You will not be able to enter.
okay. I was just thinking like for an emergency or something like that.
Right. It
Yeah.
does qualify as an emergency exit.
Okay,
but it is not intended to be open for entrance purposes.
Okay. But if you ate and you wanted to go to the parking lot without going out, back out the front and around, you could do that? Or no?
I mean, if you knew about that, you could, yes. But the answer is yes, you could.
Okay. I mean, alarm wouldn't go off, would it?
No.
Okay. I mean, I can see where you don't want, but I mean, if something happened, or even if it was not a nice weather day in Livonia, which is very, very rare, but in the event that it was snowing or raining, if I had eaten and I wanted to go out the back, I could.
Yes, you could.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mrs. Smiley, and also thank you for acknowledging that it's always sunny and 78 in Livonia. Any other questions for our petitioner?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Long?
thank you. The location of the dumpster in the back with the screening and everything like that, we're adding, you're adding shrubs to help cover that. Is that correct? Because I'm worried about the odors and just the location of the dumpster compared to the residential area.
So the dumpster gets dumped 3 times a week. And
Okay.
we do power wash that dumpster once a month. We're very conscious of smell. Because initially that, when we got the property, that dumpster was located on the southeast corner of the building.
Yeah.
We decided to move that for those purposes in case of any smell. But like I said, those things get dumped 3 times a week, and we keep them very clean.
Okay.
And we've never had that's something that I am conscious of every time I go to these locations, and there's never, I'm trying to think, never have I, or maybe rarely, nothing's coming to mind, but I mean, it's a dumpster. Obviously it has potential to smell on a hot, super hot
Sure.
day. But that's something we are thinking about, and that will be a very clean area.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Long. Any other questions for our petitioner?
Chairman,
Is that Mr. Bonjero?
yes, sir. Just for Mr. Pollard, just following up on a question I had asked earlier about that, all the vegetation and growth in the back, you're planning on leaving that, right?
Yeah, on the east end of the property with the trees and stuff there is some overgrowth that's kind of coming into the parking lot. We're definitely going to clean that up a little bit, and we will maintain that.
But the main stuff, because you can't, it's a nice screen because you can't
I'm
see
with
the
you.
house back
Yeah,
there.
I'm with you. And I have no plans on getting rid of that. I mean, I think we had talked earlier. That's one of the things that kind of I liked about the property was it's kind of, it's a freestanding building. It's got these big trees all around it. It kind of has a barbecue kind of feel to it already, as opposed to being in a strip mall next to a 7-Eleven next to a bank. So that is something that I like, and we will keep that, and we will maintain that north and south side of the property back there.
Just one other thing to add. I was there at the site today, and I met Mr. Pollard. I had a chance to meet him when I was leaving, and he invited me in and took me for the grand tour, and it's extremely impressive. And I left there with just the feeling that this guy really knows his business and really is passionate about it. And I think it's going to be a phenomenal addition to this end of the city.
Thank you very
That's
much.
all.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bonjero.
Thank you.
Any other questions for our petitioner?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Caremagna?
I think it's for Mr. Pollard. A couple of things. Back to the mural for a minute. Do you use a mural on any of your other buildings?
We do have one in Shelby Township with the same artist. It's actually on the side of a shipping container. I'm trying to think if I have an image of that. I do not. I might have one on my phone somewhere, but it's very tasteful. It's kind of an image of a night with some trees. But yes, I do. We do have one there at Shelby Township. The other locations don't really, the opportunity didn't really come up in Orion to kind of work that in. It's just that back wall of that building needs something back there. It's just boring. There's not much I can really do back there. And I just thought this would add something to the back of that building. That was my thought there.
Yeah, I don't totally disagree. I think something back there livens things up. Although you're going to have parking against the back of that building, it's going to make it difficult for your hand pointing to the south, I think. Yeah, it should have been nice to see what you had on another one of your buildings, just as a real life example. Maybe you can send something to Mark that he can share with us. Not tonight, but in the next couple of days. The other question I had for you is just a curious question. Who is Bad Brad?
So the short version of that is, we were back in 2008 when we were looking for properties. We originally were going to end up in Detroit, actually, in the Greektown district at the old Sweet Georgia Browns, if anybody remembers that place back in the day. And we had a different name and a slightly different barbecue concept. We were going to be named, the name of the restaurant was going to be City Smoke Barbecue, which is actually the name of the company. It's DBA Bad Brad's. That deal fell through, and I found this building in New Baltimore, but City Smoke just didn't really feel like it worked there because it wasn't really a city. So we really didn't have a name, and it was in the 11th hour. And Brad is a partner, and we grew up together. I've known him my whole life, and his nickname was Bad Brad. And we were sitting with our graphic designer, and we were just having a couple beers, kind of just talking, and I said, we should call it Bad Brad's. We should call it Bad Brad's Barbecue. Well, no one really liked it, but the graphic designer, he goes onto Facebook, takes Brad's face right out of a picture, slaps it on, and then puts some flames behind it and puts Bad Brad's Barbecue. And we just thought it was hilarious. And I said, we got to do it. I said, but nobody liked the name. But I said, listen, does anybody go to a restaurant for the name? What is it? Sounds, you say anything a million times, it sounds normal, but back then it didn't sound so normal. And we just we stuck with it. And he's kind of like the Colonel Sanders of barbecue now.
Well, I'm sure Brad likes it, so that's good.
All right, thank you, Mr. Caramagno. Any other questions or comments for our petitioner? I don't see anyone else looking to ask any questions. There is no one else in the audience on our Zoom meeting tonight besides Mr. Kritzman and Mr. Pollard. So with that, I will give you, Mr. Pollard, the final word as our petitioner. Is there anything else that you'd like to say before we make our decision?
I would just like to say, it's been so far in Livonia, it's been a pleasure. Everybody's been really good to work with. My experience has been positive. We have a great rapport with all of our cities, but you guys have been exceptionally good to work with. So I want to say thank you very much for welcoming us into town, and we're excited to be here. We're looking to bring a world-class barbecue restaurant to Livonia, and I think we're going to accomplish that. And I think Brandon hit it on the head earlier with the way he described that. It's a destination place that people are going to flock to, and I think Livonia will, especially that little strip that we're in, will be definitely a better place with our restaurant there. So thank you guys for taking the time. I appreciate it, and we're excited to be in Livonia.
Great, thank you, Mr. Pollard. With that, if there's no other questions or comments, I will go to the commission for a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Ventura.
I'd like to offer an approving resolution that the request to expand the food service operation of the restaurant formerly G. Subu's Leather Bottle to include an outdoor patio and exterior facade renovations at 20,300 Farmington Road is hereby approved, subject to City Council approval and the following conditions. Number one, that the site plan marked C1.0 dated June 6, 2017, prepared by JNR Engineering PE Inc., is hereby approved and shall be adhered to. Number two, that the number of customer seats shall not exceed the parking capacity of the site. Current plan shows a total of 175 seats including 131 interior seats and 44 outdoor patio seats. That the landscape plan marked L1.0 dated June 6, 2017, prepared by JR Engineering PE, Inc. is hereby approved and shall be adhered to. Number 4, that all disturbed lawn areas, including road rights of way, shall be sodded in lieu of hydroseeding. Number 5, that any outdoor speakers and or sound equipment, including television, shall not be heard beyond the property lines of the restaurant at any time the equipment is in use. Number 6, that any form of outdoor advertising or signage shall be prohibited on any of the patio structures, including the fencing, canopy, pergola, seating, and tables, without the prior written approval of the City of Livonia Inspection Department. Number 7, that the structural calculations for the metal shipping container bordering the north end of the patio shall be submitted to and approved by the city's engineering department and or inspection department. Number 8, that the elevation plan marked A2.1 dated June 6, 2017, prepared by JNR Engineering PE, Inc. is hereby approved and shall be adhered to. Number 9, that all rooftop mechanical equipment shall be concealed from public view on all sides by screening that should be of a compatible character, material, and color to the other exterior materials on the building. Number 10, that the 3 walls of the trash dumpster shall be constructed out of building materials and shall complement that of the building. The enclosure gate shall be of solid panel steel construction or durable, long-lasting solid panel fiberglass. The trash dumpster area shall always be maintained when not in use closed. Number 11, that all light fixtures shall not exceed 20 feet in height and shall be aimed to and shielded so as to minimize stray light trespassing across property lines and glaring into adjacent roadways. Number 12, that only conforming signage is approved at this position, and any additional signage shall be separately submitted for review and approval by the Zoning Board of Appeals. Number 13, that unless approved by the proper local authority, any type of exterior advertising such as promotional flags, streamers, or sponsored vehicles designed to attract the attention of passing motorists shall be prohibited. Number 14, that the graphic content of the mural on the back wall of the building facing the main rear parking lot shall be separately submitted for review and approval by the City Council. Number 15, that no LED light band or exposed neon shall be permitted on this site, including but not limited to the building or around the windows. And number 16, pursuant to section 19.10 of ordinance number 543, the zoning ordinance of the City of Livonia, this approval is valid for a period of 1 year only from the date of approval by City Council, and unless a building permit is obtained, this approval shall be null and void at the expiration of said period.
Thank you, Mr. Ventura. Is there support?
Support.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Ventura, supported by Mrs. Smiley. Is there any discussion on the motion? Mr. Tormina.
Just maybe a suggestion on that condition number 14 dealing with the mural. And I know this was discussed earlier, and Commissioner Ventura suggesting that there be some review of the final design. And so the prepared resolution had this indicates separately the requirement for a separate submission for review and approval by City Council. I just want to make sure that that's agreed upon by everyone, and maybe strike the word separately. I don't know that we need a separate review by council if in fact what they review at their meeting in a few weeks, if there's additional information that they're comfortable with. I don't know that there's any need for a separate submission, I guess is my point. So maybe some discussion on that particular condition.
I understand what you're saying, Mr. Tormina. If the petitioner is able to get a finalized design of the mural by the council meeting, then it could be approved at the same time. Mr. Ventura, are you okay with the slight adjustment that Mr. Tormina has suggested?
Okay with it insofar as the final design that shall be adhered to is submitted to the city council and approved by them. And I guess I would be comfortable, Tormina, with language that allowed them to submit in a couple of weeks if they have it ready to the council for final approval, or bring it back at some point in the future for approval when they get the design done. But I feel strongly that the final design that shall be adhered to gets approved by the city council.
Yeah, so
Okay.
what we can do is, Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Sure.
is we can include language in there in terms of the final design being what is reviewed, and just there's no need for the word separately in there, but a final design. So I think the concern clearly is that something that is a concept that is subject to substantial change between the time the council reviews it and it's done. That's the concerns. So we'll address that in the final wording of that condition number 14.
I'm good with that, Mr. Chairman.
All right. You're good with that, Mr. Ventura, and Mrs. Smiley, you're okay with that as well?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I do agree that I think that it's important that we're not giving a blank canvas, so to speak, to that wall, and whatever is going to be put there needs to be looked at and approved by some body of the city before it's put up. Is there any other comments or questions on our petition?
Mr. Wilshaw,
Mr. Kritzman?
if I could speak to that item for a moment on behalf of the petitioner, I would like to say that we'd be more than happy to submit an intended direction of the mural as it relates to the proposed design, recognizing that this is a custom piece of artwork and not something that is ordered off a website or something to that effect. We're certainly not going to stray far from the intended direction. I'm kind of picturing something at this point that replaces the gentleman in the sample with maybe like the likeness of Pete Ventura holding a light in the back, pointing people toward the south side of the building. It's a possible direction. But while the details of...
I don't think you could afford the royalties.
Yeah. Well, the details of the beard, the mustache, the eyebrows, and the rest may change from the intended direction to the actual design. I think the petitioner is very comfortable with submitting something that captures not just the intended character of the image, but also what happens with the balance of the facade. There's certainly a lot of validity to the fact that the sample that was submitted is of a different size, shape, and proportion than the proposed wall that the mural will be applied to. So I certainly understand the concerns. We don't want to find ourselves as a city in a position where we're allowing a blank canvas opportunity to someone who isn't adhering to any sort of recourse or recall or review by a body such as yourself. So I believe the owner and the artist would be able to submit something that gives a direction and that can be, loosely adhered to, with the understanding that some of the smaller, more definitive features of the actual artistic interpretation of the piece will be subject to final approval by the administration, and by extension, those allowing it to open from a final occupancy standpoint.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Kritzman, for your comments. And I don't know that you need to butter up Mr. Ventura too much. He's already made an approving motion on this, so.
Yeah, I learned long ago to try to be quiet when they have an approving, but I just wanted to touch on that one.
All right, very good. Any other comments or questions on the motion that we have on the floor? This is an approving resolution. If there's nothing else, Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Ventura,
Aye.
Mrs. Smiley,
Aye.
Mrs. McHugh,
Aye.
Mr. Bonjero,
Aye.
Mr. Long,
Aye.
Caremagna votes aye. Chair Wolschow.
Votes aye, motion passes. We'll go on to city council with an approving recommendation. And again, both to Mr. Pollard and Mr. Kritzman, congratulations, and we wish you the best of luck on this project. We're very excited about it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you for coming this evening. And with that, we have one last item on our agenda, Mr. Secretary.
And that's the approval of the 1,156th public hearing and regular meeting held by the Planning Commission on June 23rd, 2020.
Very good, thank you. And I show that all members were present. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do we have support?
Or
All right, I heard Mr. Long first on the motion and Mrs. Smiley on the support. So we'll go with that. If there is no objection from any of our 7 commissioners, I will ask that the secretary please show unanimous approval on the minutes for our previous meeting. I don't see any objections. So we'll mark that as approved. That takes us to the end of our agenda tonight. Is there any other business to come before the Planning Commission this evening? Seeing and hearing none, I will look to the commission for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Long, supported by
Support.
Mrs. McHugh. We have a motion to adjourn by Long and McHugh. Again, if there's no objection from any of our commissioners, we will show 7 on the motion to adjourn. And that will end our meeting this evening. I would like to thank Livonia Television staff for their contribution to bringing this meeting to our audience tonight. Again, I'd also like to thank our planning staff for attending our meeting and assisting us. And with no further business to come before the Planning Commission, we'll adjourn this meeting tonight at 8:18 p.m. Good night, Livonia, and please stay safe.